Hello everyone. Well, we are now going to study Unit 5, Natural Disasters, okay? So let's see. Um, on the first page we have some news, okay? Some news about natural disasters. In this case, we have, for example, uh, a blizzard. We have a pandemics, okay? Or an epidemic. And we have in here uh, what? A famine. Okay. So let's discuss about this. Do you think or worry about epidemics, famines, and weather emergencies? When when stories about these events appeared in the news, are you interested in reading about them? Why do newspapers often put this information on the front page? What percentage of the news is about disasters and emergencies? Not all disasters are natural disasters caused by nature. What are some kinds of disasters? How are they caused? Okay, so this is today's topic, natural or not necessarily natural disasters. Okay, so you might already know what we're going to talk about in class. So, here we have a photo story. Okay, we have a woman in front of a laptop. She's looking at some kind of bad news or kind of catastrophe in another country, and she's worried about it. And she's talking to her partner about this. Okay, so let's listen.
Page 51. Exercise B. Photo story. Read and listen to a conversation about a natural disaster.
Oh my goodness, take a look at this.
Why? What's going on?
There's this enormous flood in Slovakia. Look at these people on the roof. The water's up to the second floor. And look at these cars. I sure hope there was no one in them.
That sounds horrendous. Any word on casualties?
It says no reports of deaths or injuries so far, but it's in the middle of a city, for goodness sake. The death toll could end up being huge.
And can you imagine the property damage?
Well, they estimate almost 50% of the houses in town are underwater already.
What a disaster.
I wonder how this flood compares to the one they had in New Orleans a few years back. Remember that?
You bet I do. How could anyone forget? And that flooded almost half the city, too.
Let's turn on CNN. They usually have breaking news about stuff like this.
So here we have a pair work where we have to answer these questions, okay? Where do you get your news? Okay? A newspaper, weekly news magazine, for example, the TV newscasts, radio news report, internet news sites, or word of mouth, okay? And discussion. Which do you think are the best sources for breaking news, for weather forecasts, for emergency information? Explain your reasons. We might talk about this a little bit in class. Okay, now we have in lesson 1 how to convey a message. So, we have for that the indirect speech, okay? That is the report speech. For imperatives, that is kind of easy, okay? So, for example, if Peter said, "Be careful if you go out during the storm," Peter said to be careful if you go out during the storm, okay? So the shape, the form of the sentence changes. Okay, another imperative is, for example, they said, read the weather report. They said to read the weather report. Okay, and finally, change the time expressions and pronouns. For example, she told Dan, call me tomorrow. She told Dan to call her the next day. To call me is to call her because it's a woman that's talking. And then tomorrow becomes the next day. Okay? Here we have a conversation model. Let's listen to this.
Page 52. Conversation Model. Exercise A. Read and listen to someone conveying a message.
I'm on the phone with your parents. Would you like to say hello?
I would, but I'm running late.
Anything you'd like me to tell them?
Yes, please tell them to turn on the TV. There's a storm on the way.
Will do.
Okay. Here we have, okay. Anything you'd like me to tell them? Okay, to tell them. And the man said directly, yes, please tell them to turn on the TV. It is an imperative, okay? Tell them, turn on the TV, okay? Please tell them to turn on the TV. There's a storm on the way, okay? So we should use in class the report speech in order to practice it. Okay, for lesson 2, we have some new vocabulary. Let's listen.
Page 54. Vocabulary. Severe weather and other natural disasters. Exercise A. Read and listen.
A tornado.
A hurricane. A typhoon.
A flood.
A landslide.
A drought.
Okay, so here we have the vocabulary, and now we have some grammar in here too, okay? Regarding the report speech or indirect speech, say and tell regarding tense changes, okay? For example, use tell when you mention the listener. Use say when you don't. For example, Maggie told her parents to stay at home. Okay, Mary told her parents, she told them to stay at home. Maggie said to stay at home. The listener of the action is not mentioned. When say and tell are in the past, the verbs in the indirect speech statement often change to one tense into the past. For example, the present becomes the past and the past becomes the past perfect. So they said, like 10 days ago, they said, the weather is awful. They said that the weather was awful. Okay? Dan said, like 10 days ago, he said, we all had the flu. Okay? Since he's talking about the past, we say that he said that they all had the flu. Okay? Which is the past perfect. We also have a conversation model regarding how to talk about the news, okay? And maybe how to report them. So let's listen.
Page 55. Conversation Model. Exercise A. Read and listen to a conversation about the news.
What's going on in the news today?
Well, the Times says there was a terrible storm in the south.
Really?
Yes, it says lots of houses were destroyed.
What a shame.
But there haven't been any deaths.
Thank goodness for that.
So, for lesson 3, we have describe natural disasters. And we have some vocabulary in here to this is the severity of the disaster. In this case, for example, mild. Okay, a mild disaster is uh, something like it was a disaster, but it was mild. It was not difficult or severe at all. Moderate, okay, moderate is like there was damage, but not so much. Severe, severe is like really complicated. Deadly, because there were casualties, there were dead people. And catastrophic, okay, meaning that there were losses of uh, public property places, for example, or there were casualties regarding people, etc. So, have you or someone you know experienced a natural disaster before? What kind of disaster was it? How severe was it? Tell the class about it. So we might talk about this. Maybe not regarding disaster we have lived, that we have, but we actually have some disasters in the last few years. But about whatever disaster we have heard of, maybe before. So here we have a reading that turns to be listening regarding earthquakes. Okay, so let's listen.
Page 56. Reading. Read and listen.
Earthquakes. Earthquakes are among the deadliest natural disasters, causing the largest numbers of casualties, the highest death tolls, and the greatest destruction. In 1556, in China, the deadliest earthquake in history killed 830,000 people. But many other earthquakes have caused the deaths of more than 100,000 people, and it is not unusual, even in modern times, for an earthquake death toll to reach 20 to 30,000 people, with hundreds of thousands left homeless and with countless injured. The floodwaters of the 2004 tsunami in Sumatra, which killed over 200,000 people, were caused by a catastrophic earthquake. There are 4 factors that affect the casualty rate and economic impact of earthquakes: magnitude, location, quality of construction of buildings, and timing. Magnitude. The magnitude, or strength, of an earthquake is measured on the Richter scale, ranging from 1 to 10, with 10 being the greatest. Earthquakes over 6 on the Richter scale are often deadly, and those over 8 are generally catastrophic, causing terrible damage. Location. A severe earthquake that is located far from population centers does not cause the same damage as a less severe one that occurs in the middle of a city. As an example, in 1960, the strongest earthquake ever recorded, 9.5 magnitude on the Richter scale, struck in the Pacific Ocean near the Chilean coastline, destroying buildings, killing over 2,000, and injuring another 3,000 in regional cities near the coast. If this quake had struck a city directly, it would have been catastrophic, and hundreds of thousands might have been killed. Similarly, in Alaska in 1964, a magnitude 9.2 quake hit an area with few people, and the death toll was 117. Quality of construction. Modern building construction techniques can lessen the death toll and economic impact of a moderate earthquake that would otherwise cause severe destruction of older-style buildings. In 2010, a terrible earthquake in Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, caused the destruction of a tremendous number of the city's buildings, mostly due to poor construction. In contrast, an even stronger earthquake later that year in Chile caused less destruction because of that country's use of earthquake-resistant construction. timing. Finally, the time of occurrence of an earthquake can affect the number of deaths and casualties. Earthquakes that occur in the night when people are indoors usually cause a greater death toll than ones that occur when people are outdoors.
Okay, so here we have some review of the vocabulary we've been studying so far. The type of disaster, remember it could be a flood, storm, landslide, earthquake, flood, famine, epidemic. The adjectives that can describe a disaster could be mild, moderate, severe, deadly, or catastrophic. And the features that are caused by the by the disaster could be casualties. The number of dead people are the casualties, injuries, property damage, and the death toll. Okay? So, in lesson 4, we have prepare for an emergency. And we have some new vocabulary. Okay? Let's listen to the vocabulary.
Page 58. Before you listen. Exercise A. Vocabulary. Emergency preparations and supplies. Read and listen.
Evacuate.
An emergency.
A power outage.
A shelter.
A first aid kit.
A flashlight.
Non-perishable food.
Okay. So, here we have some examples of things that we might need in the case of a disaster. For example, one recommendation is be sure to have a first aid kit with the scissors and bandages, and a battery-operated flashlight, in British torch, is a must when there is a power outage. Okay? We also have in here some other examples of things that we need when we are planning to be ready for a natural disaster. For example, batteries, matches, and bottled water. Okay? In here we have even a small example, very small example of plans and reasons to have them. For example, have 2 liters of water. The reason to have enough water in case the water is unsafe to drink. Okay, so you might have like some liters of water if there is a type of disaster that, I don't know, um, doesn't allow you to drink water. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to watch the videos because the lesson is over. Okay, so we have the sitcom, 2 scenes, and the song. Okay, so that's all for today. After the videos, the video will finish. Okay, so see you.
So, Mrs. Beatty, you're looking for an exciting place for your next vacation.
I usually travel to major cities in Europe, but this time I want to go someplace different, someplace away from the city, as long as it's safe.
Let's see. How about California? The Big Sur area is spectacular.
California has lots of earthquakes, doesn't it?
Well, they have earthquakes occasionally, but not very often.
But it does have earthquakes.
Yes.
I'm not going.
Okay. How about someplace in Asia? A beach in Thailand? Koh Chang has beautiful beaches, and it's very quiet there.
A quiet beach sounds nice. But they said on the news there's a monsoon in Thailand.
But the monsoon will be over by the time you go.
What else can you recommend?
Australia. The Australian outback is amazing.
I've heard they have tornadoes in Australia.
In some parts.
Where else?
Jamaica?
Hurricanes.
South Africa?
Floods.
Hawaii?
Landslide.
You know a lot about natural disasters, don't you, Mrs. Beatty? Let's see. What about Finland?
Finland?
It's wild, beautiful, and very different from other parts of Europe, and nothing bad ever happens in Finland.
Finland sounds good. I'll go to Finland.
Great. I'll book your tickets. Okay, I just booked your tickets to Helsinki, Finland. You'll be staying at the Palace Hotel.
That's great.
Excuse me, Mr. Evans.
Yes, Marie.
Mr. Woods is on the phone. He told me to tell you it's urgent.
Urgent?
He's traveling, you know.
Yes.
He said there's some kind of epidemic.
What kind of epidemic?
It sounds like it's that new influenza.
But he was vaccinated for that before he left.
I know, but he told me to tell you that he wants to fly home today.
On the internet, it says only 3 people are sick. That is not an epidemic. And it's not like anybody's dying from this flu.
He said he didn't want to be the first.
Where is he traveling, may I ask?
He's in Finland.
Finland? I just booked tickets to Finland.
Mrs. Beatty, everything will be fine. You'll get vaccinated, and you'll have nothing to worry about.
I'm not going to Finland. You told me nothing bad ever happens in Finland.
Mrs. Beatty, I can't think of anywhere in the world you can go and be completely safe. Right here in this city, you could go outside and get hit by a bus. But you can't let that stop you from doing the things you want to do. Look, why don't we go to lunch and we'll talk it over?
I don't think she's going anywhere.
Thank you for helping me to survive. I'm really lucky to be alive.
When I was caught in a freezing snowstorm, you taught me how to stay warm. When I was running from a landslide with no place to hide, you protected me from injury. Even the world's biggest tsunami has got nothing on me, because you can go faster. You keep me safe from disaster. You're like some kind of hero. You're the best friend that I know.
Thank you for helping me to survive. I'm really lucky to be alive.
When the big flood came with the pouring rain, they were saying that a natural disaster loomed. You just opened your umbrella. You were the only fellow who kept calm and prepared. You found a shelter. I never felt like anybody cared the way that you did when you said, I will always be there. You can bet your life on it. And when the cyclone turned the day into night, you held a flashlight and showed me the safe way home. You called for help on your cell phone. You said you'd never leave me. You said, believe me, in times of trouble you will never be alone. They said it wasn't such a bad situation. It was beyond imagination. I'm just glad to be alive, and that is no exaggeration.
Thank you for